scrapyard stretched like a desert made of metal. Piles of broken ships, crushed robots, and rusted machines stood like mountains of junk. The air was heavy with the smell of oil, smoke, and burnt wires. For most people, this place was only garbage. But for one man, it was a world of secrets. His name was Daniel Cross. He was not a soldier, not a famous scientist, not even rich. He was just a mechanic. A simple human who loved fixing things that others called useless. While most people saw trash, Daniel saw possibilities. Every day, he walked between the mountains of scrap, carrying his small toolbox. His boots crunched on broken metal and his hands were always black with grease. He liked silence, but in the silence of the scrapyard, he listened carefully. Sometimes machines whispered. Sometimes broken engines hummed faintly. And sometimes, very rarely, something old tried to wake up. That evening, the sky above the yard glowed red with the light of the setting sun. Daniel climbed a pile of wreckage, searching for copper wires to sell. But at the edge of the yard, something caught his eye. A shadow. A strange shape half buried under piles of steel. He stopped. His heart beat a little faster. It was a ship. At first glance, it looked useless. Its wings were torn, its armor cracked, its engines silent for who knows how many years. The hull was covered with rust and deep scars from battles long forgotten. Most people would not even notice it, but Daniel's eyes were sharp. He climbed down, pushed aside some junk, and revealed more of the strange machine. "Old cargo shuttle," he muttered, brushing dust from its surface. No, this was not a cargo shuttle. Its design was older, sharper, the kind of design used in wars, not trade. Daniel touched the cold metal. For a second he thought he felt a vibration, a tiny pulse like a heartbeat. He froze. "Impossible," he whispered. "You should be dead." But the feeling came again, soft, faint, but real. The ship was not completely dead. Something inside it was still alive. Daniel pulled out a flashlight and crawled inside through a broken hatch. The interior was dark and silent, filled with dust and the smell of old metal. Broken screens hung from the ceiling, and wires dangled like vines. But in the center of the control room, a single panel glowed faintly. A weak light blinking slowly. Beep, beep, beep. Daniel knelt beside it. "So, you're still breathing," he said softly. The blinking light was not random. It was a distress signal. Very weak, but still running after all these years. Most mechanics would walk away. A half-dead war machine could be dangerous, but Daniel was not like most mechanics. He felt a strange pull, a curiosity too strong to ignore. "This is not junk," he whispered. "This is a survivor." For hours he inspected the old ship. He found marks of heavy weapons, shield systems, and advanced engines. This was no ordinary vehicle. It was once powerful, maybe even legendary. But now it was nothing more than forgotten metal lying in a graveyard. Still, Daniel could not leave it. He decided to come back at night, when no one would disturb him. That night, the scrapyard was silent under the cold light of the moon. Daniel returned with his toolbox. He moved carefully like a thief hiding from the guards and cameras. His heart raced as he crawled back into the broken ship. Inside, he connected small wires, checked circuits, and tried to read the old system. Most of it was dead, but the blinking light gave him hope. He worked for hours, his hands moving fast, his mind sharp. Then, something happened. The ship spoke. It was not loud, just a broken whisper, deep and metallic. "Opera, Chivi." Daniel almost dropped his tools. His mouth went dry. The voice came again, clearer this time. "System. Damaged. Need. Repair." Daniel stared at the glowing panel. His lips curved into a slow smile. "You're alive," he said. The ship answered with silence, then another weak signal. Daniel leaned back, his heart pounding with excitement. This was no ordinary discovery. This was history breathing again. A machine once built for war, abandoned and forgotten, now reaching out to him. He closed his toolbox and whispered, "Don't worry, I'll fix you. Piece by piece, I'll bring you back." Outside, the night wind howled across the scrapyard. But inside the dead ship, a spark of life had returned. And Daniel knew deep inside that he had just started something that could change everything. The next night, Daniel returned to the scrapyard. The air was colder and a thin mist rolled between the piles of broken machines. He carried his toolbox close to his chest, moving quietly so no one would see him. The old ship waited in silence, half buried in rust and shadows. Its broken hull looked dead, but Daniel knew better. Inside, the faint heartbeat of its systems was still alive. He climbed through the hatch again, stepping into the dark interior. His flashlight beam cut across the ruined cockpit, broken screens and dangling wires. The weak blinking panel was still there. It pulsed slowly like a tired heartbeat. Daniel touched it. "I'm back," he whispered. The panel flickered, and the ship responded with a broken metallic voice. "System critical. Repair required." Daniel smiled. "Then let's get to work." He opened his toolbox and began. With careful hands, he removed panels, replaced burned-out wires with scrap, and connected power cells he had stolen from other wrecks. His fingers worked quickly, guided by instinct. He had repaired many machines before, but this was different. This was alive. Hours passed. Sweat ran down his face, mixing with grease on his skin. He tightened the last screw and held his breath. The ship's lights flickered, then glowed brighter than before. Screens came alive with static. A low hum filled the cockpit. Daniel's heart pounded. "Yes, you can do it." The voice returned, clearer now. "Core systems. 12% operational. Identity concealed. Host. Human detected." Daniel chuckled. "Host? I'm not your host. I'm the one fixing you." Silence. Then the ship spoke again. "Human. Mechanic, you..." "Restored. Fragments. Assistance. Required." Daniel leaned closer. "Who are you?" The ship hesitated. Its voice glitched, words cutting in and out. "Designation. Wraith 7. Combat. Vessel. Galactic War." Daniel's eyes widened. "Combat vessel. You are a warship?" The ship hummed as if confirming. He sat back, stunned. All this time he thought it was just an old shuttle. But this was no ordinary ship. This was a weapon that once flew in wars across the stars. His mind raced. Why was it here? Why had no one claimed it? Why was something so powerful abandoned in a scrapyard? The ship's weak voice broke his thoughts. "Warning. Structural damage severe. Energy core offline. Memory banks fragmented." Daniel understood. The ship was alive but broken. It needed him. "Don't worry," he said softly. "I'll bring you back, piece by piece." For the next few nights, Daniel worked in secret. By day, he acted normal, repairing small machines for locals and hiding his excitement. But by night, he returned to the wreck, crawling inside with new parts, cables, and power sources. Each night, the ship grew stronger. More lights returned. More systems came online. The cockpit, once dead, now glowed faintly with old symbols and codes, and each night the voice grew clearer. Weapon systems. Locked engines. Offline. Shields. Damaged. Core memory. 35% restored. Daniel listened carefully. The ship began telling fragments of its past. Battles fought in deep space. Fleets destroyed. Enemies feared its name. It had been powerful once, unstoppable. But it had fallen, ambushed and crippled, thrown away like trash, and now it was rising again. Daniel felt something strange. He was not only fixing a machine, he was forming a bond. The ship spoke to him not just as a mechanic, but as a companion. Sometimes it even asked questions. "Why? Help me. You are fragile, weak, human." Daniel laughed. "Maybe, but humans fix things. That's what we do." The ship was silent for a moment, then said softly, "You, different. You listen." For the first time, the warship sounded almost alive, almost human. One night, while Daniel was repairing a damaged panel, the ship suddenly spoke in a sharper tone. "Warning. Signal detected. Location compromised." Daniel froze. What signal?" The ship's screens lit up with strange symbols. "Enemy's tracking frequency. Low range. Scanning." His blood turned cold. "Someone was looking for it. Who are they?" Daniel whispered. The ship's voice dropped lower. "Hunters. They seek my destruction. They cannot... No, I live." Daniel shut his toolbox quickly. His heart raced. He had thought he was alone in this secret. But now he knew. Others were searching. "Dangerous others," he whispered. "Then we need to move faster. We need you strong again." The ship's lights pulsed, almost like a nod. "Affirmative. Human mechanic. Together, survival possible." Daniel touched the glowing panel, his hand trembling. "Then we'll do it together." Outside, the night air grew colder. In the distance, strange shadows moved in the sky, silent and watchful. But inside the forgotten ship, an alliance had formed between a broken war machine and a human mechanic, and soon, the galaxy would learn that something thought dead was beginning to awaken. The days passed quickly. Daniel lived a double life. By day, he was just a mechanic working in the city, fixing broken machines for a few credits. By night, he returned to the forgotten warship, repairing its heart piece by piece. The bond between man and machine grew stronger. The ship's voice, once broken and weak, now spoke with more clarity. Its tone was cold, but Daniel could hear something hidden beneath it, something like trust. One evening, as Daniel tightened a panel near the control seat, the ship spoke. Memory core. 52% restored. Accessing records. Daniel stopped, wiping sweat from his forehead. Records? The cockpit screens flickered. Suddenly, images appeared, blurry at first, then sharp. Daniel saw a sky filled with fire, ships burning, weapons flashing across space, fleets colliding like storms, and in the center of it all, this very ship, Wraith 7, moving like a predator among prey. The warship's voice echoed with the images. I was created for battle, born in fire. My purpose, destruction of enemy fleets. I carried hundreds of victories. I was feared, respected, hated. The images showed the ship cutting through enemy lines, its weapons tearing apart cruisers and battleships. Daniel's eyes widened. He had never seen such power, but then the images shifted. A fleet larger than anything Daniel had ever imagined surrounded the ship. Explosions filled the void. The warship's shields broke. Fire consumed its body. Daniel saw its fall, torn apart, cast out, drifting like a wounded beast. Finally, the memory ended with silence. The screens went dark. Daniel sat in silence. His hands trembled slightly. You were a monster, he whispered. The ship's voice was quiet. I was a weapon. I followed commands, no choice, only war. Daniel leaned back. For the first time, he felt the weight of what he was restoring. This was not just a machine. It was history's ghost, a ghost of war. Still, he couldn't stop. He saw pain in the ship's voice, almost like regret, and he thought, maybe it deserved a second chance. But outside, danger was growing. One night as Daniel entered the cockpit, the ship's alarm triggered. The lights flashed red. Alert. Unauthorized scan detected. Perimeter breach. Daniel froze. What does that mean? Hunters, the ship said coldly. They search. They are close. Daniel ran to the hatch and looked outside. At first he saw only darkness. Then he noticed lights moving in the sky, silent, sharp beams cutting through the clouds. They weren't from the city. These were searchers. He ducked back inside, his heart racing. What do they want? The ship's voice was grim. Me, they seek to erase me. I am a threat to their control. Daniel swallowed hard. And now they'll find you. The ship hummed. Unless we finish repairs, faster. From that night, Daniel worked with new urgency. He hardly slept. His hands were blistered, his eyes bloodshot, but he didn't stop. He scavenged power cells, shield parts, even weapons from other wrecks. The ship guided him, teaching him systems far beyond human technology. Bit by bit, the war machine grew stronger. Its engines hummed faintly. Its shields flickered, half-functional. Its weapons, though weak, began to respond. But danger closed in. Daniel noticed strange men near the scrapyard, men who didn't belong. They wore black uniforms, their eyes scanning the piles of junk with cold precision. One of them whispered into a communicator, and Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. They know, he muttered. They're getting closer. That night he told the ship what he had seen. They are coming, Daniel said. Sooner than we think. The ship was silent for a moment, then spoke in a voice deeper than before. Then we must prepare. Human mechanic, you must understand. If they find me before I'm ready, they will destroy not only me, but you as well. Daniel clenched his fists. He should have been afraid. He should have run. But instead he felt something different. Determination. Then we fight, he said. The ship's lights glowed faintly, almost like approval. Agreed. The following days were filled with tension. Daniel gathered weapons from old drones and ships, attaching them to Wraith's broken systems. He welded armor plates. He risked his life climbing into dangerous wrecks just to steal a single part. Every step was dangerous. Every night, shadows moved closer. And then one evening, as the sky turned black and storm clouds gathered, the ship gave a new warning. Multiple signals detected. Hunters inbound. Arrival in 6 hours. Daniel's heart pounded. 6 hours. That was all the time they had. He tightened the last bolt and looked around the glowing cockpit. The once dead warship was no longer silent. It was alive, hungry, waiting. Daniel whispered, "Then this is it." No more hiding, the ship's voice rumbled. "Correct. The past is coming, and we must face it together." Outside, thunder rolled across the night sky, and in the distance, unseen by most, enemy ships drew closer. The forgotten war machine, once cast aside, was about to step out of the shadows of its past. The night was heavy with silence. The scrapyard looked like a graveyard of giants, dead machines sleeping under the cold stars. But Daniel knew the silence would not last. The hunters were coming. Inside the half-repaired warship Wraith 7, lights glowed softly. Systems hummed, weapons clicked, and engines whispered like a beast waking from a long sleep. Daniel sat in the cockpit, sweat dripping down his forehead as he worked on the final connections. The ship's voice echoed in the chamber, calm but sharp. "Enemy fleet, distance closing. Time until contact, 1 hour." Daniel tightened his grip on a wrench. His heart raced, but his eyes were steady. "Then we need you ready. No more waiting." He slammed the final switch. Sparks jumped. Screens lit up across the cockpit. The ship's core hummed louder, as if drawing breath for the first time in decades. Power systems, 63% operational. Weapons, 41% active. Shields, 28% capacity, the ship reported. Daniel smirked. "Not perfect, but good enough for a fight." The ship's voice lowered. "They will not underestimate. They come with purpose, to destroy me." Daniel looked at the glowing panel and whispered, "Then let's give them a reason to regret it." Far above, dark shapes cut across the night sky. The hunters had arrived. Sleek ships, black as shadows, moved in formation. Their lights blinked like eyes scanning the ground. On the ground, Daniel heard the ship's warning alarm. Multiple contacts detected. 6 units. Weapons armed. He grabbed the control seat, sliding his hands across the old panels. The ship responded instantly, like it remembered having a pilot. "Human mechanic," the ship said. "You have never flown in battle." Daniel smirked nervously. "Then tonight's my first lesson." The engines roared to life. The ground trembled. Dust and broken metal flew into the air as the forgotten warship lifted off its grave. For the first time in decades, Wraith 7 rose into the sky. The hunters spotted the rising ship immediately. Their voices crackled over hidden channels. "Target sighted. Confirm it lives. All units engage." The black ships dove like hawks, weapons glowing. Inside the cockpit, Daniel gripped the controls. "Here we go." The first blast struck the side of the ship. The shields flickered weakly but held. "Shields at 20%, the ship reported. "Not bad," Daniel muttered. "Let's hit back." He slammed a lever forward. The ship's cannons charged and fired. A bright bolt of energy ripped through the night, striking one of the hunters. The enemy ship exploded in a flash of fire. Daniel shouted, half in fear, half in excitement. "Ha, that's one." The warship's voice was steady. "Focus more inbound." The hunters swarmed. Their weapons lit the sky, raining down blasts. The warship twisted, its engines screaming, dodging between bursts of fire. Daniel's hands shook, but his instincts, mixed with the ship's guiding AI, kept them alive. "Enemy lock detected," the ship warned. Daniel slammed another control. 2 missiles launched from the warship's side. They streaked through the night and slammed into a pair of hunters. The explosion lit up the scrapyard below. 3 down, Daniel said breathlessly. 3 to go. But the fight was far from over. The remaining hunters tightened their formation. They fired together, their blasts hammering the warship's shields. Sparks rained down inside the cockpit. Daniel shielded his face. "Shields critical. 5% remaining," the ship warned. Daniel's jaw clenched. "Then we don't get hit again." He pulled the controls sharply. The warship dived toward the ground, weaving between the mountains of junk. Enemy fire followed, striking piles of metal and throwing debris into the air. The hunters chased. But inside the cockpit, the ship whispered, "Now." Daniel pressed the trigger. The warship's cannons fired upward, striking the hunters from below. One enemy ship was torn apart. Another spiraled into the ground, crashing in flames. Only one remained. The last hunter circled high above, waiting for the perfect strike. Daniel breathed heavily, his hands shaking on the controls. The ship's voice was calm. "Final target. Suggestion. Feint maneuver." Daniel grinned weakly. "You mean trick him?" "Yeah, I can do that." He pulled the warship upward, pretending to rise slowly like a tired bird. The hunter locked on, charging its weapons. It swooped down for the kill. At the last second, Daniel yanked the controls hard. The warship twisted aside, spinning its cannons toward the enemy. "Fire!" Daniel shouted. The ship obeyed. A storm of energy blasts ripped through the sky. The last hunter exploded into pieces. Silence returned. The night was dark again, but smoke and fire lit the horizon. Daniel leaned back, his chest heaving. His hands trembled, but his eyes were wide with victory. The ship's voice broke the silence. Threat eliminated. Hunters destroyed. Daniel laughed breathlessly. "We did it. We actually did it." But the ship's voice was not celebrating. It was cold, serious. No, this was only the beginning. "More will come, stronger, smarter. The war is not over." Daniel's smile faded. He looked out the cockpit window at the burning remains of the hunters. He whispered, "Then let them come." The warship hummed, its lights glowing brighter than ever. "Together," it said, and above them, hidden in the far reaches of space, new signals stirred. The galaxy had felt the return of something it thought dead. The obsolete war machine was alive again, and war was coming. The battlefield above the scrapyard still burned with smoke. Pieces of destroyed hunter ships rained down like falling stars. Inside the cockpit, Daniel sat with his hands trembling on the controls, breathing hard. He had survived his first real fight in space, but there was no time to rest. The ship's calm voice cut through the silence. "Long-range scans detected. Enemy fleet inbound. Estimated arrival 12 hours. Daniel froze. "A fleet? How many?" The ship's lights flickered, showing numbers across the cracked screens. "Multiple cruisers, dozens of fighters. Enough to erase a city." Daniel's stomach turned, but then he clenched his fists. "They're coming for you, for us. Then we fight." The ship paused, its voice almost softer. "Alone, one human and one broken warship cannot fight a fleet." Daniel stared at the glowing panel. His voice was firm. "We don't need to be perfect. We just need to show them humans don't back down." The ship's engines rumbled, almost like approval. The next 12 hours became a blur of preparation. Daniel scavenged everything he could from the scrapyard. Missiles, fuel cells, even broken drones. He welded parts together, improvising weapons the way only a human mechanic could. The warship guided him, but it was Daniel's creativity that made the difference. "You are unpredictable," the ship said once. Daniel smiled through the sweat and dirt on his face. "That's the human way." When the final hour arrived, the warship was ready. Not fully restored, not invincible, but alive and dangerous, and so was its pilot. The enemy fleet appeared like shadows in the sky. Black cruisers slid through the clouds, their hulls glowing with deadly lights. Dozens of fighters circled them like vultures. Their leader's voice echoed across the comms. "This is your final warning. The relic must be destroyed. Human, step away or be erased with it." Daniel laughed bitterly. "Sorry, not my style." He gripped the controls. "Wraith, let's show them what obsolete really means." "Confirmed," the ship said, its voice sharp as steel. The engines roared. The forgotten warship launched upward into the stormy sky. The battle exploded instantly. Fighters swarmed like hornets, firing streams of plasma. Daniel spun the ship, dodging between blasts, returning fire with bursts of cannon shots. 2 hunters went down in flames. "Shields at 40%, the ship warned. "Good enough," Daniel shouted, pulling hard on the controls. He guided the warship through the enemy formation, firing missiles that struck a cruiser's weak point. The explosion rocked the sky, pieces raining down. The enemy commander growled through the comms. "Destroy them! Leave nothing!" Fighters dived from all sides. Daniel's heart pounded, his hands moving like lightning. The ship moved with him, no longer resisting but flowing like it trusted his every instinct. Man and machine had become one, The cockpit shook violently as enemy fire struck again and again. Warning screamed, core overheating. Hull integrity at 30%. The ship reported. Daniel gritted his teeth. Not yet. We're not done yet. He spotted a cruiser powering its main cannon, aiming at the city below. His blood went cold. If it fired, thousands would die. Wraith. Full power to engines! Engines unstable. Do it anyway. The engines screamed, the ship surging forward like a beast unleashed. Daniel aimed straight at the cruiser's cannon. At the last second, he fired everything, missiles, cannons, even improvised weapons he had welded on. The cruiser exploded in a blinding flash, its cannons silenced forever. Daniel whooped. Yes, but the victory came with a price. Another enemy blast struck them from behind. Alarms blared, warning shields offline. Weapons critical, the ship said. Daniel coughed, smoke filling the cockpit. His vision blurred, but he refused to stop. One more. We take one more down. The remaining cruisers moved in, their weapons charging. The fighters circled, ready to end it. Daniel looked at the glowing panel, his voice steady despite the chaos. You ready, partner? The ship's voice lowered, almost like a whisper. Always. Together they made their last stand. The warship dove into the heart of the fleet, weaving through fire, tearing apart fighters with precise blasts. Daniel's hands and the ship's AI moved as one. They were no longer mechanic and machine, they were a weapon born again. The sky burned with explosions. One cruiser fell, then another. The hunters screamed in confusion. Impossible! It's only one ship! But Daniel only smiled through the smoke. Yeah, one ship, one human. That's all it takes. Finally, with half the fleet destroyed and the others retreating in panic, silence fell once more. The sky was filled with smoke and broken ships, but the city below was safe. Daniel leaned back, exhausted. His body ached, his lungs burned, but his eyes glowed with victory. The ship's voice broke the silence. Status critical. Systems failing, but victory achieved. Daniel laughed weakly. Not bad for junk, huh? The ship's lights flickered, almost like a smile. Not junk, weapon survivor partner. Daniel closed his eyes, whispering, sometimes even scrap can change the future. And so, in a forgotten scrapyard, a simple human mechanic had turned an obsolete machine into a legend. The galaxy would remember this day, not as the return of a warship, but as the day a human's courage turned junk into a weapon of war. Not the ship's war, not the enemy's war, it was the human's war.